We're in Port Carling, Ontario, and with Andrew Collett, and of course the inimitable, dapper Jeff Schewe.
Yeah, different shirt.
Nice shirt.
Thanks.
And Andrew, I was here visiting with you, and we talked about your business and being a landscape photographer, running a gallery, doing canvas prints about a year and a half ago, and that was in issue 19 of the Video Journal. So we're about to reprise that whole thing with Jeff as the dapper host. Because I know, Jeff, you have a particular interest in canvas printing.
Yes.
That's something you want to find out about. And there's some new technologies in surface mount printing with aluminum and acrylic and all kinds of fascinating things. And since we were here a year and a half ago, you've moved your production facility to a larger place because it's been such a success for you.
Absolutely.
So, Jeff, take it away.
Andrew, a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, Jeff.
Nice pictures.
Thank you. Thank
Sell them?
you. Sorry?
Do you sell them?
Oh, 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I would be interested in asking is, what's it like to be a gallery owner and artist?
Exciting. You just have to remember to leave time to create the art, which can be the challenge. There's no better test in marketing than to put something up on your own wall and have somebody come in and purchase it and respond to it. So for me as a landscape photographer, I can get some immediate feedback, having immediate customers available coming in and looking at my work, which is great.
And gratification.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's nice when people like your work.
It is. I always photograph from within first, and then hopefully that people respond to that. However, I have to be honest and say that over the years I've started to notice what people respond to and have been shooting more and more of those type of subject matters. So you definitely do get, you have to think about that aspect of it as well too, So.
And here in the gallery, you have some stuff that is framed, kind of a float mount. You have some stuff that is gallery wrapped, and you're going to do a demo of the gallery wrapped canvas. You've got triptychs. I don't see any diptychs.
No diptychs.
Okay, just triptychs.
Yep.
And what you call a quad panel?
4 sections, basically.
Yeah, 4 sections. So when you go out to shoot, you have in your mind what it is that you want to shoot, or you have in your mind where you want to go and respond to what you see?
It's more the latter, where I want to go. And I'll pick subject matter that excites me and interests me. And then when I get there and I do all my scouting, looking at the lay of the land, finding my compositions, I'll start thinking about different formats as well too, and how these might present themselves as the print. I do believe you have to have sort of the end in mind before the beginning starts, so it gives you some direction.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just shooting from the hip, and you hope for the best. I went out on a shoot in Newfoundland last year and surprised myself. At the end of the day, I only photographed 150 shots, but a significant number of them became pieces I wanted to work on. And so certainly having that end result in mind, less sometimes is more.
And you're currently shooting digital.
Yes.
You used to shoot film.
Right.
Yeah.
Large format.
Yes. Conceptually, when you went out to shoot, what was the difference? How has your method of shooting or looking and ability to shoot changed with digital versus film?
That's a good question. The number one change for me has been in presentation of the image afterwards. With film, it was a very traditional approach, okay? Not a lot has changed from the technique that I use in the field as far as exposure, of course. I still use my split density filters. I've used my tilt shift lenses, but in the presentation, so I guess going back to the triptychs and the quad panels, certainly those we can do now in digital very, very easily. And that will factor into my compositions and what I choose and the subject matter I choose is in the presentation. The other aspect, I guess, what I really enjoy about digital is when it comes to panorama photographs and being able to do, using a tilt shift lens, using the shift feature, being able to do 3 different images, blend them together in Photoshop, and have a wonderful panorama with lots of image information to work with for the processing.
So you're doing your own printing, and
Yes.
we'll see the printer when we go back to the workshop. You're using what kind of canvas?
I use Breathing Color. Yeah, they have a number of different canvases. They have an economy line, they have sort of a mid-line, which is Chromata, and then they have their high-end line, which is Live. And basically, depending on where the image is going to end up and what the use is going to for, will be my decision on which canvas I'm going to use. If we're going to be doing a hotel where the art's going to live on the walls for 7 to 10 years, there's no sense using a museum-quality archival canvas for that type of presentation. So we'll use for instance, the Breathing Color, the economy. And all the canvases are sprayed as well with the Breathing Color Glamour 2.
And 9900?
Yes.
Epson 9900?
Yeah. Good workhorses.
Yeah. So, Andrew, let's go take a look at this triptych. I find triptychs kind of intriguing, but potentially problematic. When you were out shooting, you didn't have this necessarily in mind, did you?
No.
No.
When I photographed this, it was as one solid piece, 2:3 aspect ratio, the way I set up the composition. This, for viewers that might be interested, is Lake Superior, Old Woman Bay, a fantastic location for photography. But sometimes what I find after the fact, when I'll experiment with presentation, I'll take a look and do a preview in Photoshop, split the image into 3 and say, what would this look like as a triptych? As a business that sells art, we have to think about sort of usage and to some extent what might be popular in the decor industry, in the design industry, and certainly triptychs are a big seller for me. And having the ability to do something a little bit different than just a standard presentation really does enhance the look of the image and enhance the marketability of it as well too. Not everything works as a triptych. This one particularly does.
It does.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting, when a triptych works, it's when each individual frame kind of works on its own, but when you put the 3 of them together, it's kind of what is a term called gestalt. So it's the full result of all of them is greater than the sum of its parts.
I agree 100%. Each panel has to have something of visual interest to hold its own, absolutely. And that's why some work and some just don't. Certainly, usually when I'm out photographing, I'm not always thinking of triptychs. I am certainly thinking about the image as a whole first. And then if the triptych works after, that's a bonus.
And then generally speaking, you're cropping in camera. When you're shooting, you're not going to shoot too loose because you want to maximize the image quality.
That goes back to my film days. Large format, shooting with 4x5, everything was done in camera. You want to get the composition set up exactly the way. I mean, there are, of course, little cropping that does have to be done subtly after. I'm not going to not take a photograph because I have to crop 10% of it away or something. But certainly I try to get as much image quality out of the picture, which means I have to shoot pretty much full frame in the camera and then coax it, enlarge it from there.
Or stitch.
Or stitch, yes, and like with the panoramas, absolutely.
Ever use a tripod?
No, what's a tripod? Of course, absolutely. It's mandatory equipment, isn't it, for getting good results. When we're enlarging like this, you do, with the technology that I use, it's a 22 megapixel Canon camera. Use good glass, of course, but there is a limit when the resolution starts to break down. So anything I can do to increase that quality and get a better output from that, I'm all about that. So tripod's part of it. One of the reasons I've embraced the tilt shift lenses as well is because I can shoot at f5.6, f8, and get that f22 depth of field without having any diffraction issues to deal with. And that's something certainly that lends itself to an enlargement.
So Andrew, that means you Scheimpflug it?
Absolutely. I know what it means, but don't ask me to explain it. But absolutely, adjust the plane of focus to really get that near far sharp.
Yes, because I've noticed on some of the things, you've got foreground and distance in focus. And as you said, f-stop, you stop down too far, the diffraction, the image gets too soft.
It certainly does. And I mean, I use the 24, the 45, and the 90 tilt shift lenses from Canon. And to be honest with you, they're so good when you learn to use them. They take a long time to get really good at them. I find myself looking for compositions that fit those focal lengths quite often because I know that I'm going to get a great print out of that.
Well, oftentimes you shoot with the equipment that you have an affinity for you go looking to kind of fill the frame,
Yes, absolutely.
which I
agree.
think is fine.
Yeah.
Where's this?
That's Newfoundland, and that's a really good example of using the 90 tilt shift and more for the shifting aspect of that and bringing the three photographs together. But that's Grousemore National Park in Newfoundland.
What sells better, big or small?
Well, I originally started out, Jeff, thinking that, you know, the less expensive pieces, the smaller pieces would be what were most successful for me. The opposite was true. It basically, that single factor changed my whole business. People need big art. They have walls to fill. They have over a sofa. They have over a fireplace, a bed, a dining room. They can't put a 16 by 20 print or a 20 by 24, whatever those sizes, traditional standard sizes that you're used to in those spaces. And so what happened is I needed to create big art. And with my business model, where I sell both wholesale, so to the trade, and both retail, I needed to be able to produce this all myself in-house. Otherwise, my costs were extraordinary, having to pay other people to do a triptych like this. I could sell it retail, but certainly not in the wholesale trade market. So went out and purchased the equipment, and it was a bit of an investment, a bit of a roll of the dice, I guess you'll say. I started out with my tiptoes into the water, if you will. I bought the, I think the first large format printer I bought was the 7600 to do 24 wide. And that allowed me to do basically 20 by 30s on canvas, not big enough. Within a couple of months, I had sold that and then went out and bought at that time it would have been the 9600 Epson, being able to do the bigger size, the 30 by 45 size, which is a great over the sofa size. The 38 by 57, which is a great sort of vaulted ceiling, high ceiling size, again over the sofa. It allowed me to do that, and those are the pieces that really started to sell for me. So basically, my whole business decision had to be made on what's the market for my art and how do I have to be able to produce that and bring all that technique inside. So it certainly is the large pieces that sell. Not to discourage anybody from doing small prints. I certainly do an 8 by 12 matted out to a 16 by 20. We sell those for $75 Canadian. They're already matted, so people can go to Walmart and get a frame if they want. And we sell a lot of those as well too. But it takes you have to sell 10 of those to sell one of the large ones, if you know what I mean. So, and it puts you at a different level as a photographer when you're able to produce large. Your competition starts to get smaller and smaller because fewer and fewer photographers are able to do that and know how to do that. The interesting thing is when you enlarge an image, of course, the good gets enlarged, but also the bad. And a lot of people don't realize how bad, from a technical standpoint, their image is until they try to enlarge it 36 by 54 or whatever size.
A lot of times when you do it big, what you're doing is not only magnifying the image, but magnifying the defects and the flaws and all the problems with the image.
That's correct, yes.
So these are some of the big prints, and over here we have some smaller ones, and you also have an interesting kind of new mounting. Let's go take a look at that.
Sure.
So Andrew, show me this new thing.
Well, this is interesting, Jeff. I keep an eye on the print market and different presentations that are out there, different trends, I guess, if you will, that are coming in. This kind of caught my eye, maybe about 3 years ago in the UK and Europe. It was, it's called face mount to acrylic, face mount to plexi, and it started to really show itself and become very popular over there. It's also really has started to show itself now in the United States. And it basically is the opposite of canvas. It's a high detail, high dynamic range, high impact, wet, glossy look without the problems that we get with matting under glass on a traditional type of glossy print. It's a very contemporary presentation, and I'm really excited about it. We've actually invested in the equipment to do this. It is probably the most complicated production process for mounting and framing a photograph that there is. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But in a nutshell, what we have here is a print that has to be done on a high gloss paper. Has to be flat. There can't be any texture to the paper at all. What happens is once that print's printed, you need to mount it to a piece of acrylic. Okay, you can use different types of acrylic, of course. There's museum grade, there's decor grade, there's non-glare, anti-reflective, UV. The choice is up to you really what you want to use. But once the print is mounted to that, it's a special, it's not new equipment to do this. It's using old equipment basically to do a new presentation style. Once you have it mounted to the acrylic, then what you have to do is you have to attach a substrate to the back of it. And people are using, they call it aluminum, but most people use a product called Dibond, which is aluminum in between, PVC plastic sandwiched in between two sheets of aluminum. Really rigid, really kind of a great substrate to work with.
Not terribly heavy, correct?
No, not terribly heavy at all.
Yeah.
Lighter than glass, using glass, because you're using the acrylic. So not terribly heavy, but the neat thing about this is we can hang it framed or unframed. So much like the canvas where you can show it with just the canvas wrap edges, what we would do in a situation where we would have this unframed is we would use what are called offset hooks or offset mounts, which floated off the wall. Really, really nice presentation.
Can you grab one of the frames and show what it would look like?
To dress these up, you can also, of course, frame them like you would a traditional photograph. With the exception of not having to use matte, not having to use glass, because basically it already has the glass, if you will. And you can use any type of traditional type of frame. You could use what are called liners in front of this as well, too, to give almost the impression of matte. The choices are unlimited, you know. What I'm doing with this, the reason I'm so excited about this, it's a complete opposite from my canvas. And one of the things you have to watch when you're in the art business is you have to see where the trends are going, what's going out as much as what's coming in. We start to see with canvas a little bit of, it's becoming more and more
common?
Common is a good way to put it. More photographers are doing it. It doesn't have the same wow factor that it did when I started doing this about 4 years ago with canvas, 4 or 5 years ago. And what I'm looking for now is that new wow, that new like leading edge presentation. Because of the complexities in making this, nobody's going to be doing it. Very, very few people will be doing this on a serious level to begin with. So really excited about it. It's going to be a higher end product for me, higher end presentation, a limited edition I'll be doing them with, and this will be done all with new artwork. So what I'll have is my open edition canvas lines, and then we'll be creating a special limited edition face mount to acrylic line as well too.
So have you done triptychs and quads with this yet?
Yes, spectacular.
Yeah,
on the right image. This again,
probably have to be very careful about the flatness of it.
Yes, you do. And what you need to do is you need to put. You can use many different materials, but you do need to put brackets on the back to hold it straight. Yeah. Otherwise, it takes a natural curve of the acrylic. It will start to bow over time, if you will.
Yeah.
So that can be aluminum C-channels in the back. You could even use a really cheap frame molding. Anything that you want just to give it a bit of structure.
Yeah. A little delicate on the surface.
Yep, it will scratch easily. It will be, you have to treat it with kid gloves, absolutely. That's part of the uniqueness of it. It is terribly frustrating to produce these because one speck of dust, and I mean one speck of dust, creates in between the image and the acrylic creates what's called an inclusion, and you see it, and you're done. That's it.
Yeah.
So I really recommend people, if you want to try this yourself and you have the equipment to do it, you buy all the cheap materials first and just pretty much budget a couple $1,000s in wastage to get it right, because it's very complicated to make.
Practice small.
Yeah, practice small, that's right. Yeah, practice small. But we're so excited about it, and I can't wait. I have a couple of shoots that I'm doing this year that are specifically I'm going to be photographing for this presentation technique. So looking for some more contemporary type of pieces.
So doing this, though, is going to stress your technique even further than the canvas.
Absolutely.
Better image quality.
Yep.
Dynamic range.
Well, you know, this is a sample that I've done up, and the viewers at home won't be able to see the differences between the canvas necessarily and this one, but what we do see right away is a lot more detail in the rocks, a lot more detail in the distant rock
and
cliffs.
Deeper blacks.
Deeper blacks. It's kind of it's kind of exciting for me because we're really not sacrificing any image quality here for the presentation, which some will argue you do with canvas, and certainly you do. You get a great look, but you do suffer. The blacks aren't as rich, the detail isn't as sharp, and as photographers, we're all excited about the perfect technical and artistically heightened piece of art. When you can bring both of those together, it's terrific. So I'm excited about this because it'll show the best of both worlds, but certainly I'll be doing most of my images with my tilt shift lenses, shooting f5.6, f4, maybe f8, lots of depth of field, and I have a vision in my head how I want these to look because it's a wet high gloss. There'll be lots of water, there'll be lots of long exposures, big skies, dramatic, probably a little more subtle muted colors as well too. So that it doesn't have that kind of garish look to it, certainly everything. So you have to, again, getting back to what we talked about earlier, you do change your photographic style for the presentation technique sometimes. So we're really excited about this, and we'll test this in our gallery. We'll test it in our shows that we do the end of this year as well too. But I think the response is going to be phenomenal.
So we're going to see kind of the process of making this when we go back to the workshop.
You're going to see when we go to the workshop, we're not going to be actually making any from scratch complete products, but complete art. But what I will show you is the materials and sort of a general overview how it goes together, the equipment that's needed, and of course we're going to look at the canvas. I mean, don't take this as a shun to the canvas. The canvas is my bread and butter, and it will continue to be a big part of my business. But you need to always have something new coming. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to show up at a show and all the other photographers are like, oh, how did he do that? Isn't that great? Oh, I wish I could do that. That's, you want to lead, you want to be first to market. And so always have to be thinking every 18 months, every 24 months, how are we going to show work in a new light that surprises people?
We were talking before about the fact that when you go to shows, you have a limited array of wall space to actually be able to display the prints, correct? But why don't you grab your little iPad and show me what it is that you use as a really good sales tool?
Sure, absolutely.
This is the iPad 1, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had it for now 3 months and it's already, out of date, of course.
This right here is your website, which is its own media, basically, the web. And tell me how you use your website on your iPad.
Well, first of all, the reason I bought this, I was trying to resist having to buy another Apple product. Who needs another charge? But it's been a phenomenal tool for us in sales. It's when we do a lot of art shows a year. We have a lot of customers that will come up and they'll say, oh, I love this piece. Do you have anything that will go with it? And quite often we won't have anything at the show that will go with it, but we can call up our website. This is the 3G version, so it works off a cell and anywhere. So we don't need Wi-Fi, and we can show and go through the website and show as beautiful as these images look on this iPad. It's tremendous. And scroll through, show the artwork to people. And this iPad paid for itself basically the first show that we did with increased sales. And when we make calls as well too to clients, so we sell a lot to the interior design market, we can go out with this without having to bring a huge ton of samples. We can bring 1 or 2 samples to show the quality and then show the portfolio.
That's one of the things. I've got friends that try to sell prints over the web. And one of the disconnects is the fact that if you can't see the quality of the print, you can see the image, but you can't see the quality of the print. So if you have the examples, the proof of the print, so to speak, and then you have other images, it's very easy for a customer to kind of imagine what it's going to look like because they can take a look at this image and see an example of a different image in the framing and the matting.
That's correct. They see the quality, they know it's good, and then they're going to obviously expect everything else that they see on here to be of similar quality as well too. The other nice thing is this is not very intrusive. It's very subtle when you go in to see a customer. You don't need to ask to plug your laptop in and hook it up to their network. It's just ready to go.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, that looks really good on the screen of the iPad, that one there as well too. So,
but not just for shows. You were also mentioning the fact that when you go in and talk with contractors or architects or designers, this becomes very handy as
Yeah.
well.
Well, you have your whole portfolio here. You know, you're not bringing out binders and samples of prints and print boxes, and it's everything's here. It's easy and it looks good, and there's certainly a certain amount of sophistication with having these.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they sort of want one and they love to see it. So when you do bring it out, I mean, like anything, this will become very commonplace, of course. But there's other products as well that Apple does. I mean, a lot of people will use their iPhones, for instance, won't they? And I think, Jeff, you have some of your images that I've yet to see on your iPhone as well, too.
Let me put this down. Here's the thing. Although this is going to be funny because the image that I'm going to show you, a panoramic 7-shot stitch from Monument Valley.
Beautiful.
But on a little iPhone.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that works.
It certainly does. And I think that, you know, I can see similar opportunities to use an iPhone like this with showing your work. Again, if you're going into a meeting, you certainly would want to have an example of the real thing, wouldn't you? And then you can go through your portfolio on the iPhone.
So let me ask you, is the print dead?
No.
Thank God.
Without a doubt, you can't hang an iPad over your sofa, can you, and enjoy it in the same
Well,
way?
you can get some big LCDs and constantly changing art. You know, Bill Gates has his big art display in constantly rotating art in his, so I've been told, I've never been there. You know, display technology is where a lot of technological advance is going.
I think that for a person who's looking for decorations for the wall, that would probably work. A person who's looking for a piece of art, something with a lot more aesthetics to it, who looks at a computer screen all day long, certainly doesn't want to go home and appreciate their art on a computer screen at home.
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. The ironic thing is, this is a market we should get into. We haven't yet, but we get requests for it all the time. Can you make these that I can put over my flat screen TV? A lot of people want to cover that up so they don't have to look at that.
Good
We
idea.
get requests for that all the time. And it certainly goes to show that, you know, not everybody is going to want to have a digital piece of art or have to look at something digital. They want to have the aesthetics and appreciation for a canvas or whatever your medium is, actual piece of art on the wall.
Well, good. So I think it's time for the workshop.
Sure.
Okay.
The production facility.
The
Absolutely.
production
Let's
facility.
go.